Good morning, everyone. Aloha. I'm Jason Schwartz, and this is the Neutral Zone. We're anything but neutral. What that means is we like to speak to people on all sides of all issues and see where we can find common ground. Our main sponsor, in fact, is my brother, who has a Center for Common Ground down in Los Angeles. And it's interesting to me that we both come from different places, different environments here, but we're coming up with the same concept. Speaking of the same concept, we have a guest today that I have wanted to have on our show since the beginning. Albert Perez is Executive Director, is that right?
Good morning, Jason.
Good morning.
Yes, I am Executive
Director. Maui Tomorrow. Now, some people say, what's Maui Tomorrow? If you've been on Maui and you'd like to know what Maui is going to look like tomorrow, and you'd like to shape it rather than sort of wait, that's when I think of you. Welcome to our show, Albert. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason. I am well this morning.
Are you Al or Albert? What do you prefer?
Take your pick. Just don't call me Alex.
Okay. Now, for some of you know Al Perez for a long time. I remember my friend and Dr. Rick Sands always was talking highly of you and Anthony Rankin because it was more than 25 years ago. The state park at McKenna was really an effort of you three, is how I recall.
That was probably 40 years ago. And this is our 30th anniversary of Maui Tomorrow. It's
Wow.
our 30th year.
Wow. Maui Tomorrow, how would you describe what Maui Tomorrow does or is?
Well, the full name is Maui Tomorrow Foundation. So we're all about educating people to make the right choices, empowering them to get involved in the planning process. And what we push for is ecologically sound development and open space. We get involved in making our feelings known, and we help other people to do that as well.
Well, as I think of Maui Tomorrow, I see that so many things are changing all through these years, and you've been sort of laying out, I want to call it a plan, for the future of Maui that might well be integrated to serve its people. Do you concentrate on any special areas? Is it environmental focus or housing focus or anything?
I don't know if we have a plan for Maui. Maui has its own series of plans. The general plan, so there's the countywide policy plans, there is the Maui Island plan, and there are the different community plans. And those are the plans for Maui. And so once they're adopted, we fight for them. Because there are a lot of times where those plans aren't followed, and yet they're supposed to be followed by state law.
Is there any kind of, quote, agency or anyone guiding to our world to see that they do, in fact, hold to the plan, or is that where you come in?
Well, no, that is the responsibility of every agency in the county, including...
when decisions are made, no one can say, wait, that's not in the community plan. You passed it, but that's not in the plan. You've gone outside the lines. Nope.
Well, that should be the responsibility of the planning department, and oftentimes that doesn't happen, and that's where we or other groups come in, and we get involved and we point out that a particular proposal is not consistent with the community plan. And if they persist, we try to work with the developers to make it consistent. If they persist in not following the plan, then we do what we can legally to stop them.
How are things looking these days? The 41,000 acre, or however many thousand acres, purchased by Mahi Pono of the A and B land. When I thought that was happening, I thought, oh, now's a chance. Albert showed me this incredible plan of what could be done with this island. Have you had much conversation with groups like him? You imagine some.
Groups like Mahi Pono?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've met with them. They sought us out initially, right after they bought the land. I have to say that the Malama Aina report to which you're referring is not a plan. It's a conceptual idea of what could be done with the former sugar lands, and that's something that we did. We recognized that Hawaiian Commercial and Sugar was likely to go out of business, at least stop farming sugar, and we didn't see anything being considered other than Monsanto and cattle. So we wanted to explore some different options, and so we did that. Anyone who's interested in that report can look at it at futureofmaui.org, futureofmaui.org.
Well, I always thought of it as not a plan, rubber stamped, but just as a really wise, incredible look. Have you seen some of that in the adopted plans of the Mahi Pono group, by example?
That's hard to say. I haven't really seen anything definitive from Mahi Pono themselves. We keep meeting with them and encouraging them to adopt regenerative agricultural farming practices. So we haven't seen anything bad coming out of it, but it's just that we haven't seen much definitive at all.
Conversations that at least I've seen in media from Larry Nixon, who I guess is leaving them, right? He was the one in charge of kind of implementing the first stages, at least, of the stuff. Anything specific have you heard? I mean, I've heard a little bit of conversation about they're going to plant this and they're going to plant that, and that they are regenerative in their posture. Have you seen anything solid yet? Nothing.
I've seen some new machinery. I've seen where they've cleared some land, particularly out between the old mill on the way out to Kihei, looking off towards Ma'alaya. There's a whole bunch of land that's been plowed or disked. I'm not sure what the right term is, but yeah, looks like they're moving forward with something.
And you probably, being that you're a former planning guy, can land, when they have 40-something thousand acres that's ag. I was speaking to someone that talked about a transportation corridor for future development, and that some of this land would be housing. When it's designated as a large ag, over time, can those parcels be changed into different zoning for different uses?
Well, that's a really broad question, Jason.
Yeah.
Part of the land, I think it's 27,000 acres, is designated as important agricultural lands, and so they've been receiving, or I should say, Alexander and Baldwin was receiving certain tax breaks in return for designating it that way. So that land needs to be used for agriculture. Then there are some other lands that are not in important ag lands designation, and those could be converted. However, it's pretty clear from my conversations with Mahi Pono that they are not really interested in doing anything except agriculture. So that's encouraging.
That is encouraging.
That's encouraging.
So there, I guess it's still to be determined. I remember it was pre-election time, and I called you up. I thought, I know who could be a campaign manager for me. And I called you up. I was living in Kaului, and you had mentioned that you'd spoken to Tasha Kam, and then I spoke to Tasha, and I made the determination not to run. But I know that you're involved, and when I think of Tasha, the first word that comes to my mind is, besides being a wonderful person, is housing, and I know that she's kind of been focusing on housing. Have you worked with any groups about future affordable housing thing? Is that something Maui Tomorrow gets involved in?
We do all the time. I don't remember the conversation you're referring to where I supposedly had talked with Tasha. I want to make it clear, though, that as a private citizen, I have some political involvement, but Maui Tomorrow does not get involved in politics.
Right. Well, I was thinking, I know it was early on in the thing, and Alan Arakawa was talking about running for council again. And I thought, well, I live here in Kahului, and I think I should be thinking to challenge that. And I was just trying to think of, who do I know that's thoughtful, that if I was looking for someone to be in charge of planning in Maui County, where would I be looking? Who would I be looking that has a real good idea of what's going on here? And I thought of you.
Okay. And I do remember that conversation, so I don't think you were aware that Tasha was running at the time. I don't know if you were or not. But
well, that's the reason I got together. I met with her just to see what her level of commitment to running was, and I didn't want to muddy the water, and I thought best to move aside. You know, over the years, that's one thing, you know, being around politics, but not running for anything. I've been trying to think of, what is my role here? All these years, you know, I was in the mortgage business, but wasn't cultivating mainland clients because I didn't want people buying here and then renting it back to us, which is happening. But I've had my hand in politics in a funny way and being very conversational. And I think, when I think about you, very diplomatic in putting out the right things to do to the world, trying not to make enemies along the way, because, you know, things in the future can always work together to find a common ground, you know.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jason. You asked about affordable housing and our involvement in that. We've actually been involved. I think it was in 2005 that Maui Tomorrow as an organization drafted the first affordable housing ordinance, the residential workforce housing ordinance. I'm not sure of the date exactly, but so we've continued to be involved in that. What we see is that local residents are having to leave, and most of the housing that's built, in fact, even under the residential workforce housing ordinance, 93% of the housing that gets built and permitted here is not truly affordable to people who make the median income or less. So it's no wonder that we're experiencing the problems that we're having. And in addition, there are thousands of illegal vacation rentals. Now, if those were all instantly converted to being legal long-term rentals, I don't know if it would solve our entire housing problem, but I think it would make a huge dent.
And all the owners that purchased with their vision of paying for their mortgage by their short-term vacation rentals, I guess they're they can be the obstacle. There's been a lot. I remember when Charmaine was proposing things, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it was very open that she wanted to take these illegal short-term rentals and convert them, and got a lot of back push. Do you still feel that, or you think people are kind of understanding why that was important?
Well, I think it's been probably, 10 or 12 years since that happened. I think people are much more aware of the impact. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said that the average price for a rental in Kihei is $4,500. That's crazy. That's not affordable to anyone that I hang out with.
I mean, I know, and that must include houses and apartments and everything.
I don't know what statistic they were referring to, but I know it's not cheap, and the number of rental homes keeps dropping. Interestingly, there was an article in the Honolulu, I think it was KITV, that TV station, and they just passed a couple of vacation rental ordinances about enforcement, I believe it was, and like the very next day they interviewed this realtor who said, I've already gotten lots of calls for people who want to list their property. Now, when you go out, because I still have this dream of owning a home myself, when you go out with a realtor and you look at one of these homes, and I'm talking about here on Maui, they very often will say, oh, and it's not legal, but you could rent this out and that could help you afford the mortgage. Well, guess what that does? That that makes it so that people can afford to pay more, which makes it harder for local people to pay rent.
Oh, yeah.
Or to buy a home.
I mean,
So that's what we're doing. We're competing. A person like me who's like not able to afford a home, I'm competing with investors, as you said, who come here, and I'm talking about big corporations. The Outrigger Hotel, I went to a planning conference 3 years ago. The Outrigger Hotel had 1,000 of these vacation rentals that I had no idea. I thought they just had big hotels in Waikiki. They have a virtual hotel in 1,000 of these different units all over the place, and they didn't say whether they were legal or not.
wow.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable to hear.
Right. So how can we compete against those kinds of people? And I get this argument that, well, you're gonna force me to sell my investment, and my response is, well, I'm sorry. Number one, I'm sorry that you made that investment, and maybe the realtor convinced you to do that, but it's not Pono, and it's not helping our housing market. Our local people are having to leave. And it's just getting worse every day. So I'm glad to see that the city and county of Honolulu took action like that. We also, as a county, we adopted a charter amendment that allowed the planning department to fine people up to $20,000 for having an illegal short-term rental. But then when I saw the planning department and the planning commission start talking about it, they started, if I recall correctly, they were talking about fining people less than that, because the charter says up to 20,000. So I don't know. I think we need to send a strong message and encourage people, help landlords to work with people and get housing for our people so we don't have to leave.
No question. I mean, we've been talking about affordable housing and number of affordable units at least 20 years that I'm aware of. You can tell me probably longer. I mean, I ran into Vince Pagoyo, who used to be on council, and you probably know well, from Lanai, and when he's talking about 8,000 and 10,000 living units short of what we need right now, and like you say, is it 93% of building is happening, things that aren't affordable? Is that what you're saying? Just extraordinary.
According to our definition at Maui Tomorrow, truly affordable housing is housing for people who make, I think it's $83,000 a year as a household or less. And there are many people who make a lot less than that.
A lot less.
But that is the median income. And so if you look at the residential workforce housing policy, only 25% of all the homes that get built are supposed to be affordable for between 80 and 140% of the median income. So we say between 100 and 140% is not really affordable. If you look at just what's allocated for 80 to 100%, that's 30% of the 25%. So if you follow the math, it's 7.5% of the total. So if you have 1,000 homes that get permitted and built in a big subdivision, 75 of those will be affordable to people who make the median income or less.
And when you say affordable, that doesn't mean comfortably affordable. It means affordable by a standard of, by example, I don't know what it is, 1/3 of your income should be directed. Used to be 25%, then I moved it to 33%, and when I was doing mortgages, it even qualified up to like 44, 46% of your income for a mortgage. So when I hear affordable, have you guys seen any laws that make sense? Have you heard of any policy changes that are in any way going to help that happen more, get more affordable housing? Like I was thinking certain legal incentives to developers, like when I think, oh, here's a developer, Everett Dowling, and he could build affordable housing. We've seen him do amazing things with all kinds of properties over the years. I guess there's not as much profit. Maybe the law could be created to give tax incentive, long-term benefit to developers that would, or I don't know if we can put a ceiling. Maybe you can. You can probably tell me. Put a ceiling on the number of vacation and short-term rental kind of properties, high-end, whatever, non-affordable, so that we can get a massive construction of lower-end affordable and somehow given a tax advantage. Can that be done? Have you seen things like that being created?
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but there have been proposals to, say, increase the residential property tax rate significantly, while at the same time creating a very large exemption for people who live in their homes or who rent long-term. So the effect would be the same. You wouldn't be paying any more in property tax as long as you're living in there or renting to somebody long-term. The difference would be that if our residential property tax rate for outsiders went way up, then Hawaii wouldn't be as attractive of a place to invest as it is right now. If you look at our property tax rate, I'm going to pull a number out of the air, a couple of numbers out of the air, but if ours is 2% of the value, 2.83, there are many places in the continental U.S. where the prices or the rates are much higher, like 6, 7, 8%. And so if you're a big investor and you want to invest money, Hawaii looks very attractive.
Well, that's why I was saying I haven't seen anything yet that I can recall that would attract a developer who's here doing non-affordable homes. No incentives. Well, that's what I'd like to see, some strong incentives. So that is their building choice. I imagine we can do that?
We have been working with the mayor, the council, various people for a long time. We've been involved with what used to be called the FACE Maui Affordable Housing Committee, and they've recently changed their name. I believe now it's Stand Up Maui. But there are developers on that group, and I've asked them, if the county were to kick in on line items that would really help you bring the cost of housing down, would you be willing to build 100% affordable housing? And not only that, but would you be willing to do it in an area where it's in the community plan? We're getting these proposals because state law allows you to do what's called a 201H project, and that's HRS 201H. And it says that you can get exemptions from anything, any state or county laws, except for meeting minimum requirements for health or safety. Well, what we're getting is people are buying agricultural land, and they're proposing to develop that, and it's not consistent with our community plan. The housing is affordable when you look at it from how much you spend on the housing, but you've got to have 2 cars and drive. We've got 2 proposals coming up again before the council tomorrow in Makila, and we just had a huge fire there, and everybody had to run for their lives just in August. We had another one in 2007, another big fire in 2001. I mean, there was a woman who came and testified who had 2nd and 3rd degree burns from the last fire, and she is urging the council not to approve any more homes in this area because it's a fire trap, and there's only one road out. But there's a chance that the council might actually approve that because it has the word affordable attached to it. This is not what needs to be done. What we need to do is find those developers who are sincere about developing 100% affordable housing and work with them. We can waive the permit fees. We can help them. Look, if they try to develop land that's next to a wastewater infrastructure and potable water infrastructure, a place where it's designed in the community plan to be there. Let's honor those people who put the community plans together.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of work goes into making a community plan.
That's right.
We're going to take a quick break here. I'm with Albert Perez. I'm Jason Schwartz. We're going to honor our sponsors, and then we're going to come back and talk about the people that we want to honor who are trying to solve some of our problems here. We'll be right back.
Elevate your Thursday nights with Akaku Upstairs, sponsored by Valley Isle Marine Center, a free salon series featuring speakers, screenings, workshops, and more. This Thursday, financial advisor Liz Arcinega will discuss the new retirement paradigm in which folks take a break from work, gain some new skills, and then return to their work in a different capacity. Seating is limited, so call 871-5554 or visit akaku.org/salons to reserve your seats for Akaku Upstairs.
The Neutral Zone, with me, Jason Schwartz, would like to thank Maui Arts and Music Association, Dreammakers Foundation of Maui, for their support. Since 1991, with hundreds of television shows and their MauiArtsandMusic.com website, they have championed self-sustainability on Maui. The Neutral Zone is heard live Mondays at 11 a.m. and replayed Saturday at 7 a.m. on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui.
My name is Hunter Hayes. I know myself, and I know my buzzed warning signs. One shot is about knowing my limits, or not necessarily knowing my limits.
I start with one shot to have a good time.
One of the signs that I'm starting to feel a little buzzed is when I start solving not only my own problems, but the entire world's problems. When I know I'm going out, I know I'm going to start with calling for a ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Aloha, this is Bill Best, inviting you to join me for my show on KAKU 88.5 FM. It's Off the Record, and I have a chance to speak with some of the most interesting people on and off the island. So be sure to listen in every Tuesday and Thursday from 11 until noon here on KAKU, the voice of Maui, 88.5 FM.
Hi, I'm Jason Schwartz, host of The Neutral Zone. KAKU is a listener-supported station. This means that all of the great programs you hear, like mine, are sponsored by you as well as our underwriters. If you would like to help keep the voice of Maui talking loud and clear, go to kakufm.org/donate today and give. And don't miss The Neutral Zone Mondays at 11 a.m. on 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. Well, we are back. I'm Jason Schwartz here at KAKU 88.5 FM LP. LP means low power. You can find us on Facebook Live. You can also find us at KAKU through Facebook Live. Also, akaku.org has a button for us. You can also find us on TuneIn, which is an app on your phone that you can find us. And you can find all of our shows at MauiNeutralZone.com and all of them up on YouTube besides. So we are happy to be here as KAKU, and Maui Television is trying to develop Maui radio. So tell your friends. There are all kinds of ways to find out what we're doing here, and as we grow, I'm hoping that more and more of you will be doing things like call in 808-873-3435. We don't know how many people are listening live, but we always dream. So 873-3435 is our phone number. Albert, thank you for coming back. And
my pleasure.
You know, I don't think of myself as a basher, but I've gotten really low tolerance when people that I know and love are suddenly finding themselves in the can't afford to live on Maui category. More and more. I feel like I'm very fortunate. I have a place to live through a program, and I was on waiting lists and all kinds. So I have housing. But so many people of my age, not that I'm old, but 68 years young, there are so many people that need housing. Would you call this, just an opinion, emergency time? Do you think it's an emergency yet? That we could do something radical, like by declaring an emergency, have different kind of temporary solutions? Do you think we're there?
Well, it's a good question. I'm inclined to say yes. However, given the people who have the emergency powers, I'm not sure that they would take the right action.
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah. So
I mean, we could waive all of our rules regarding cultural sites and just build over all the EV.
I'm not talking about that. Yeah.
Well, that's what's involved, and that's why, I think the mayor said it well in his. He had a column recently. I'm not sure what day it was, maybe Friday or something. Anyway, he was talking about housing, and he said that there are lots of constraints, and we need to be careful about them. And I'm paraphrasing based on my memory, obviously. But he didn't just say, forget about all that stuff. He said we need to work it out.
I think I saw it yesterday, so I thought it was yesterday. But yeah, it was a column about housing,
right,
where he mentioned the 96 units they're doing and a couple of hundred here, and that they're coming, but we got to do it within the constraints of what have to be done legally and appropriately.
Right. So, I mean, would it be a good idea to just say, okay, this is an emergency, and the council is going to make this decision, at least the Affordable Housing Committee will make this decision tomorrow. Will it be a good idea to say, this is an emergency, we need housing right away, so let's put them in a fire trap with one road out? I don't think so.
Well, that's a good reason to say no.
That's a good reason to say no, but if you're talking about emergency powers, that's the kind of result that we can get.
Well,
because we're not engaging in the deliberative process that is the community planning process. That's why it's so valuable, and that's why it bothers me so much that it gets ignored. And I think that this council should be looking at the community plan and saying, the 201H process allows us to make a decision in 45 days. We could have a policy, an internal policy, that only allows that to happen where the community plan says yes.
That's a great answer. But that still could mean emergencies could happen, but they have to follow the community plan. So it could happen.
And that still wouldn't prevent damage to our EV, endangered species or whatever.
EV's a bird, by the way, for those of you who don't know, right?
No, EV is the bones of our ancestors.
Oh, the bones of our ancestors. See that?
Or the EEV.
Oh, the EEV. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So, the bones of our ancestors. We've been wrestling these kind of issues here a long time. Why do you think that we haven't seen the right combination of laws all over this time?
Well, I have to stop you there. We do have the laws in place. They're just ignored and not enforced.
Oh, so that's that original thing I asked. Who is there to enforce these things? Nobody. Just the group that should be, and people like yourself and your group.
We have an enforcement function within the county. It's typically understaffed. Depending on the administration, it gets more or less emphasis. But if it hadn't been for, and I'm just going to toot our horn a little bit, if it hadn't been for Maui Tomorrow, we would already have a mega mall in Kihei. That violated the community plan. We would have Oluwalu Town, 2,500 homes. That wasn't in the plan. Bad ideas.
The people proposing it, shouldn't they have looked at the plan before they proposed it?
Well, so this gets back to why I left the planning department in the first place. So that was 30 years ago. And the first project I was handed, I said, well, this project doesn't meet the community plan. And I was told, well, that's just a guide.
Oh.
And so I said, well, okay, if we're going to ignore it, what is it guiding? But that's the way that it's been going for a long, long time. And so that's why I quit the planning department and started Maui Tomorrow, along with Rick Sands, who you mentioned, and Anthony Rankin also.
Yeah.
So that's really been our mantra, is what are we doing with these community plans that our citizens spend all this time, hundreds of hours? I mean, why should they bother if it's going to be ignored? And here we are, the West Maui Community Plan is going to, the first meeting of the Community Plan Advisory Committee is going to be convened in just a week or two. And right now they're proposing these two projects, the Makila projects in the 201H area in the fire trap, that are not consistent with the current community plan. What message does that send to the people who are contemplating spending all this time working on these plans?
That sends a horrible message to everybody. Yeah, I agree. I'm wondering, that happens often. There's no, I guess, like you said, depends on who's mayor and how much emphasis they put on the enforcement piece and how much they want people to adhere. Their planning department, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Maybe our mayor and council are listening.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. And I'm sure you're going to be down there tomorrow. Is there anything else that people can...
Well, let me stop you there, though, Jason. I mean, I've said this to them before, but what really needs to happen is the people who agree with these statements that we've just made need to get in touch with the mayor. They need to get in touch with the council and tell them just how important it is that these community plans be followed.
Yeah, well, that's why I say, sometimes people say to me, I'm glad you're speaking up for it. That makes me feel good, instead of them also speaking up for it.
Join us. Join us. There's power in numbers. We can make change, and the politicians will respond to us if we make our voices heard.
Yeah, well, you've done, I think, an admirable job. Like I said, when I think of who's going to create a landscape here that's consistent with the needs of people that live here and that honor the land and the long-term, no matter who owns it, whether it's Hawaii or United States or however it all boils down, needs to be done with respect for people that are here. And I really appreciate what you've done.
Well, Jason, it's certainly not just me. We have an excellent board, a volunteer board, that really cares about Maui. They care about the Aina. We have a lot of people who participate on our various committees. And we have a long history of people, both local residents and newcomers, who have participated and helped Maui Tomorrow to do what it's done, and we certainly couldn't have done it by ourselves.
Well, I think of Maui Tomorrow as a beacon. You know, it represents a lot of the things that many people hold close to their hearts in wanting to see Maui be sustainable and support its people and all the things that, without you guys doing it and holding that flag in the wind, we wouldn't be where we are today. And we have a lot more we can do. I keep thinking about that emergency thing because I keep thinking that emergency can still adhere to a community plan. I don't think, anything done that's outside of responsible development is what I have in mind, not at all. But I just, I'm shocked. I don't know how they can build enough units. Sadly, I've been over at the college, and it makes me sad to see all these young people growing up knowing that most of them are planning on leaving here because there's no way to support their living here, both in work and the kind of work that's being developed here. Is there any... I'm looking for the doorway. Maybe you're looking for it also. The doorway into our government to really do something about this crisis. I drive down Kamehameha Avenue and I see islands of shopping carts with tarps over them that hold the, I want to say, sleeping stuff and other things from so many homeless people that have kind of given up. There's nowhere for them to go, and I see many people that, yes, it's illegal to sleep in your cars, but people that are living and sleeping in their cars and trying to function, I don't know how to see that every day and not think there should be something more. And I talked about there's a Maui Homeless Alliance of all kinds of agencies getting together, and I guess independent people also. But I don't see anything. They talk about housing first, but talking about housing first and trying to accommodate the needs of many. Have you found, or do you have any people that have given any ideas on how to deal with this short-term, I want to call it emergency crisis? It's become a lifestyle that people are developing. That is the way they're going to be living. It's like, I've seen people that have been homeless here for so many years.
Yeah, it's become normalized in a lot of ways. I do think, based on what I read in the Maui News, I do think that they're starting to make a dent with the housing first. As a planner, my focus is on looking at trends and dealing with the trends and figuring out why we're in this situation. Interestingly, our Department of Housing and Human Concerns has a dual mandate. One is dealing with the human concerns side, which I think deals with those people who are on the street and their interactions with the various agencies, public housing. But I really feel like there should be a Department of Housing that's split off, that focuses on housing and knows exactly how many units are in the pipeline. So that's one improvement I think we could make. I don't think I addressed your question. I kind of got off track there a little bit.
I'm searching. I keep thinking that some of the developers that are here, could be given incentives or could be made aware of their, I don't want to say responsibility, but be the conscience of our island and our community, to be the ones to step up. I remember when they talk about Jesus said, here in Rome, give the Romans what they want. We got something else going on. If the people that want to own it can get advantage tax-wise and be able to make more money over time, shouldn't that be okay when we can get done the things that we might need to make our island more balanced and sustainable for its people?
Well, I think what you're talking about is that we are relying on private developers to build affordable housing. And they're not going to do that unless there's money in it for them. I mean, you can be an altruistic developer, but you still have to make money and pay your employees. If you're in business, it has to be a business. So I believe the last county public housing that was built was probably under the Lingle administration. No, sorry, it was prior to the Lingle administration. So not to get political or anything, but and I think Vince Bagoyo, I talked to Vince, he told me that he was the housing director, and during his tenure they built 1,000 homes. I believe that was in one 4-year period. So, I mean, this is what we get when we take the county out of the business. If you look at the market as solving all your problems, the only way the market is going to solve the problem is by making this another, what's that, that really rich place, starts with an M, I can't think of it right now, Monte Carlo. So that's what'll happen if we just let the market solve this problem, right? So I looked up one day, how many millionaires are there in the world? And one source said that there are 12 million millionaires, and the other said that there are 30 million millionaires in the world. If each one of them wanted a home here, none of us could compete with them for that home. So what we have is a small island. We have a problem that the market is not going to fix, because if the market fixes it, you and I are not going to live here. None of us are going to live here. It'll just be these millionaires who fly here and there. It'll be their second, third, fourth. I know some people who have 5 homes around the world. You know? So that's not the solution. What we have is the market. It's called market failure. So the market is failing to provide for public benefit, societal benefit.
Well, that's why I thought about passing laws, or like you say, making it preferential for someone that lives in their home and very high rate for
right.
those.
So that's one way. And the other thing that we could do is we could, if the county wanted to get creative, they could go ahead, designate some land, either that they own or that they condemn, and say, we're going to condemn this land here. It's close to infrastructure. Now, we're going to have a contest. And these are all the criteria: energy efficiency, livability, park space, all this stuff. We're going to have a competition between developers. You guys figure out, we're going to build 1,000 units a year. And then we are going to let people build these, and we're not going to build other things. We're going to focus on building these truly affordable homes, and we're going to get it done.
Then you solve the problem.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So
it's not a new idea.
No, but
it's been done elsewhere.
Right, and even Vince has proposed like that. When 1,000 units a year, probably now we could even double it. So, do you know of those kind of efforts that are going on right now?
Not yet. I keep suggesting that to people, but again, the quickest thing that we can do is take those illegal vacation rentals, whole house vacation rentals. I'm not talking about bed and breakfast. I'm talking about when I need to rent a 3-bedroom home, but it's being rented out on Airbnb. That is a home that's not available to me as a renter.
Right.
And I'm competing against people who, those people, they can make 2 or 3 times as much money renting it out through Airbnb as they could to me. It's just that it's not legal. So if we crack down on that, those homes are already built. Those homes don't have to go through a permitting process and take 4 years to get built or 7 years to get built. As soon as Honolulu passed that law, immediately people are putting their homes up for sale. That's what we want to see. That's a quick way to take care of our housing crisis. And the other thing is, if you ever studied microeconomics, you'd find that housing, or that prices in general, are set at the margin. So you have someone who wants to buy and someone who wants to sell. If all of a sudden there's a few more sellers, it can have a big effect on prices.
Absolutely. Well, I guess the thing that when I hear that is, we've been talking about it for a long time. We are proposing it a long time. Maybe we just have to keep mentioning it publicly, and getting more and more people to speak up and stand up and recommend it. I don't know what influence they can have except their vote. I guess that's not bad, but in the meantime, I'd like to think that people are listening to this show. Maybe we'll send them a copy of special excerpts. Well, we have a very receptive council. A couple of them are going to be on here that I plan to have here. Alice Lee said she'd come on. And Shane Sinensi, and I'm sure have Tasha again, maybe Victorino. Maybe we'll prepare some questions and get some public input. Remember that number, 873-3435. Someday I'm going to see the phone ring and I'm going to be, wow, we're reaching people live.
You know, Jason, I guess I could have a voice for radio, too.
You can. You are. See, there's always a future for you, my friend. I really think that, it sounds like, in my simple mind, we've solved these problems. It's just a matter of continually you have to keep knocking on their door, keep knocking and keep knocking and keep knocking. Hopefully we have a more receptive group. It's going to be interesting tomorrow. Do you have any feeling for how the vote might go on that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that the council will see that putting so-called affordable housing in a fire trap is not the way to solve this problem, especially in an area that's short on water.
Well, I'm sure that this show is going to be repeated after the fact. It'll be interesting to see where it's at. I hope that the no's prevail. And like you say, we can condemn a different piece of land and bring those solutions to some other place that make more sense. What do you hope Maui Tomorrow will be doing in the future? Have you set a longer-term course for what you're looking at, or do you deal with present-time fires?
No, we're always trying to be strategic, because there's no way that we, with our small nonprofit, I'm currently the only employee. I think we've had as much as 2. But there's no way that our small nonprofit can fight every bad idea that's out there. So what we are trying to do is educate people about how they can be effective in not only the planning process, but in the implementation process. So, and that it's not quite political, but if you want to have an effect and you have a choice, then you can recognize that, for example, the Planning Commission that makes all the decisions in the shoreline area, all of those people are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. So if you want the mayor to be appointing good people on the Planning Commission, then your vote can make a difference. And the confirmation side as well. So your vote for mayor and council makes a difference on the shoreline. Anywhere zoning changes, the council chooses what goes forward and what doesn't. The community plans, people on the Community Plan Advisory Committee, they make their recommendation. Then it goes to the Planning Commission, and then it goes to the council, which has the final say. So if we want to be involved, then we have to show up, either in testimony or showing up in person. Now, one challenge is that if you're working, especially if you're working 2 jobs, you don't have time to go down to the council, which typically meets during the day. You can still contact them by phone, by email, and you can also make a donation to Maui Tomorrow. We're there representing good planning and representing the INA. And if it's okay with you, I'll just tell people what our website is.
Please.
It's mauitomorrow.org, O-R-G. And so we're completely funded by private donations. And so, for those who can't go, we're there to represent you.
But like you said so eloquently, we can't be at all the issues everywhere. It's very important that people stand up and make themselves heard.
That's right. And also, we do periodically have educational sessions where the public can come and learn how the government works, learn how these decisions are made, learn how to be effective with the time that they do have in making their voices heard. So stay tuned. We'll be having those sessions periodically.
Good. Well, I am amazed, but we have gone an hour. Can you imagine? We're just yapping for an hour. I have had a terrific guest in you, Albert Perez, from Maui Tomorrow. I have nothing but accolades for you over the years. Even when I didn't think you were present, you were always present in my mind as the backbone of doing the right thing. And very much respect you, and very happy to have you join me here on this show.
Mahalo, Jason.
May we have waves that go from here and continue. I mean, we can name names of so many in the environmental movement here on Maui that are all active and loud right now, along with you. But I've really appreciated you. I mean, it's just been a long time of really appreciating that someone with knowledge is behind all the outspoken things that we hear in our community that sometimes can get poo-pooed by some of these groups, but you're the man. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
I hope everyone will join us here again, and if you want to be in touch with Maui tomorrow, please do, and get anything you need through us. We hope that we'll see you next week. It's been a pleasure having you. Aloha.